Hello, my name is Richard Kent. Today I want to talk about blood clotting. Your blood clotting system is totally supernatural. I don't know if you ever thought about it, but it is totally supernatural. It could not possibly have evolved. And I'll explain why. Every now and again I cut my finger, or I cut my leg, or something else, or I bite my tongue. And we don't really think about it very much because if you cut your finger with maybe a drawing pin, after a minute or two the bleeding stops and you stop thinking about it. It didn't hurt very much. Now I want you to imagine a little experiment now. I want you to imagine getting a big rubber balloon and filling it up with blood, and then getting a blood pressure cuff on it and blowing it up to 120 millimeters of mercury, which is what your systolic blood pressure is, and then pop it and see what happens. I'll tell you what happens is the rubber balloon will empty very, very quickly. And that's what would happen to you and me. We have 9 pints of blood, but if we didn't have a clotting factor, we would literally bleed to death very quickly. So we have to have a clotting factor, but it isn't any old clotting factor, it's a very specialised clotting factor, and I'll tell you why. Now, I used to be a doctor, and most people die because of a blood clot. I'll say that again. Most people die because of a blood clot. The most common cause of death is a heart attack. That's a blood clot in the coronary arteries. Lots of people get strokes. That's a blood clot in the brain. In hospital, 1/3 of people die of a pulmonary embolism. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a blood clot in the lungs. And it usually comes from a clot in the legs or the pelvis. A clot which is detached from the legs or the pelvis. So, and that is usually fatal. A pulmonary embolus is usually fatal. Right, so do you appreciate the problem? God has designed us with 8 pints of blood so that we basically plug the leaks, the holes in our bodies, wherever it might be, our fingers or our tongues or wherever we cut ourselves, and they clot and you stop bleeding, but only when we cut ourselves. It's no good having a clotting system that operates at other times, otherwise we'll all very quickly have heart attacks, strokes and pulmonary emboli, and we'd all be dead very quickly. So let's look at this miraculous clotting system. Now there are actually 46 separate factors, and they all happen in a chain, one after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could describe them all, but it's unnecessary. They have to happen in exactly the right order. Now, you may have heard of a condition called haemophilia. Well, haemophilia is a condition where people don't have one of the clotting factors, and it is very dangerous to be a haemophiliac because you can very easily bleed to death because one of the clotting factors is missing. No, these clotting factors have all to be present, all 46 of them. First of all, the platelets aggregate around the cut, and then they form a plug of platelets, and then they cause the capillary to compress by releasing certain hormones, basically to stop the blood coming to that area, and then fibrin is laid down, which is also called collagen, the whole process, the initial plugging takes about 2 minutes. 2 minutes to stop bleeding, but the repair of the wound can take much longer. The repair of a bone, for example, a broken bone, will take 6 weeks because it's much more complicated than repairing the skin on your finger. But think about blood clotting. It really is completely miraculous. There are 46 separate processes involved, and they must all be present in the right order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the right order and with nothing missing, as in the case of haemophiliacs. And then, of course, having laid down the clot, the clot then has to be removed. We don't want to be walking around with blood clots, so God has designed another system to remove the blood clots. Again, how on earth do the evolutionists want us to believe that this happened by chance? What are the chances of 46 separate clotting factors essential to stop somebody bleeding to death, all happening by chance? I'll tell you the chance is nil. There is no chance whatever this happened by chance. Your whole body is supernatural. It was created by God, and you are totally supernatural. Everything about you is supernatural. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.